Hey, everybody. So now we're going to put all of those tools that you've just been given in your ebook to use. How do these work with word problems? Let's figure it out. All right, so step number 1 says read the problem twice. I know sometimes you don't want to do that. You just want to get right to the work, but it really is key to read it at least 2 times. And as you get further along in math, these problems are going to get more and more complicated. So sometimes when I'm doing a pre-calculus problem, I will read it more than twice. And I do this every day. So read it more than twice if you need to. Susie swam 1,170 laps in the pool last week. If she spent a total of 6 hours swimming laps, how many laps per minute did she average? Second time. Susie swam 1,170 laps in the pool last week. If she spent a total of 6 hours swimming laps, how many laps per minute did she average? So now the next step is to draw it out. One thing I would add, especially whenever it's in specific units like this, I would double check. So we said in the first part, she swam 1,170 laps in the pool last week. If she spent a total of 6 hours swimming, how many laps per minute? So they changed the unit on you. If it stopped there, we could figure out how many laps she swam per hour and be done, but it doesn't. So really read that problem. Next step is to draw it out. So we could do this and we could figure out she ran 1,170 laps in 6 hours. So we call this a bar model or a box model. It doesn't need to be pretty, it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to be able to read it and visualize it. Especially for you visual learners, this is really important. That's me. So draw it out. We have 6 hours, so I divided the box into 6 sections. So if I figured out 1 right here, I would be able to figure out how many laps per hour on average she swam. But it's asking per minute. So you can do this a couple of ways. There's more than one way to do this. So find the way that works for you and stick with it. But you could also rename this as 60 minutes, couldn't you? Because you know there's 60 minutes in an hour. So you could convert it to minutes right away if you wanted to. And if you take 60 times 6, you know that there are 360 minutes in 6 hours. So then you could say, well, if I wanted to figure out 1 minute, I could take my 1,170 laps, and she swam that in 6 hours. And if I wanted to convert that to laps per minute, it's in the problem, laps per minute, I could say there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so you know that. You could write it at the bottom, especially when they want more than one conversion. But you could write 1 hour equals 60 minutes. I have a silly term for that. I call it a factoid. It's a Sally term. It's not your teacher's term that you're going to hear in all your math classes. But when you know something for sure and it's part of the problem, put it down in the corner so you don't have to keep remembering that. And then because they're equivalent, if you look at it, really I'm multiplying by 1 because 1 hour over 60 minutes, those are equivalent. Anything over itself equals 1. So I could do that all day long. Then you just come in here and you cancel. What goes away is the hours. That's good. We wanted hours to go away. And then if you multiply across, we get 1,170 laps per 6 times 60 is 360 minutes. And that's what we had right here. So you could just do that math on there. I'm fine if you do that on the calculator. 0.25 laps per minute. We read the problem twice. We drew it out. We really didn't have any formulas other than my factoid at the bottom and knowing to put it over itself because it equals 1. Do your math. That's what we did here. At this point, in this type of problem, I'm fine with you using a calculator. If your teacher tells you you cannot, then you have to do the long division. Either way, you can do it either way. Next, reread the question. Let's do that again. Susie swam 1,170 laps in the pool last week. If she spent a total of 6 hours swimming laps, How many laps per 1 minute did she average? Make sure you're answering the question. See, this is where you might catch yourself. If you just did it in hours instead of minutes, this is where you might catch that, is in step 5. Make sure you're answering the question they've asked. And step 6, label and box the answer. So make sure you're labeling it. It's 3.25 laps per minute. Don't just put 3.25. In our classrooms, we would have marked that wrong. So make sure you're labeling that. Go back to the question. It will tell you how to label it. How many laps per minute? So it should be in laps per minute. So we have a lot of checkpoints along here. And don't skip any of these steps, because this will get you to the correct answer if you follow all 6 steps as you do these. Dollar. Next, we have a $528 video game console is on sale for 15% off. If the sales tax is 6.25%, what is the total cost? Okay, read it again. A $528 video game console is on sale for 15% off. If sales tax is 6.25%, what is the total cost? Step 2, draw it out. In your ebook, I included this graphic about discounts, markups, tips, tax in there. So pull those out and look at those as you're working your word problems. But I have it right here. And I have the 6 steps for you. So we read it twice. Now we need to draw it out. So let's look at that. We're going to use this as a guide, the one that was printed in your book. You put a box and you put your total cost, because when it's not on sale, you have to pay 100% of whatever the cost is. But ours is on sale for 15% off. So it's 15% that we don't have to pay. So remember, this $528 is 100% of the total. But we don't have to pay that. We're getting 15% off that we don't have to pay. What does that leave for you to pay? 85%, right? 100 minus 15%. You can see that whenever we put it in a box. So we need to figure out what 85% of the total $528 is. And you know, you've been around math long enough to know that of almost always in math means multiply. So we have to figure out what 85% of $528 is. So we can write 85% as a decimal. Of means multiply and $528. So it becomes a simple math problem, but you can see it when we put it in a bar model. When you do that math on there, now you might think you're done when you see that, but as we're following our steps, you'll see that you're not. Remember, that's our sales price after we get our discount, the sale that they're having, 15% off. But back in the problem, you'll see it says a $528 video game console is on sale for 15% off. We did that. If the sales tax is 6.25%, what is the total cost? So sometimes, oftentimes, these problems are not one step. Very rarely now will you get a one-step word problem. Sorry, guys. All right, so we figured out that what we have to pay for the console is $448.80. There's always that pesky tax. It's on top of whatever your cost is. So now we know what we have to pay for the console, but we also have to figure out the tax. So you see, we have the sale price. We have to pay 100% of whatever the sale price is. We figured that out above, $448.80. Plus we have to pay the sales tax. So you have to pay both of those together. So you could figure that out. 100% plus 6.25% is 106.25%, right? Because you have to pay the 100% plus the sales tax of whatever your selling price is. That's why they figure out sales tax, whatever your sales price is, times whatever the tax rate is, tells you the sales tax. We want to figure out the whole thing. Don't be afraid to go back and read that question again, right? So we have read the problem twice. We're about to read it again. We've drawn it out. The formulas we needed were right there in our bar model. We did some math. Now we're going to go back and make sure we're headed in the right direction. A $528 video game console is on sale for 15% off. Check. If the sales tax is 6.25%, what is the total cost? So we need the total, our selling price plus the tax. And we can do that in one step, which I'm all about. If this can take one step at this point, You could figure out what the tax is and then add it back onto the sales price, but you know 106.25% will cover everything. How do we convert a percent into a decimal? Move that decimal back 2 places. So that becomes 1.0625. That goes into your calculator easier. Of almost always means multiply, 448 and 80. So once you do that math, 1.0625 times $448.80, that's what you get. That's your out the door price with your tax. You can do this. All right, last one. Of course, I had to throw a fraction in there because I know fractions and word problems are your least favorite thing. So I'm really trying to clear that up for you and let you know how simple it can be. All right, step 1, read the problem twice. A wooded piece of land is 68 3/4 acres. If 4/5 of this land is cleared for development, how many acres of wooded land will remain? Second time, a wooded piece of land is 68 3/4 acres. If 4/5 of this land is cleared for development, how many acres of wooded land will remain? Okay, so we read it twice. Now we have to draw it out. I started to draw that. The whole piece of land is 68 3/4. And we're going to take 4/5 of it for development. We're going to turn it into condos or something. So 4/5 of the land is going to be used for development. So I divided the whole rectangle into 5 sections, and 4/5 of that is going to be developed. And the question is what? Go back into your original problem. How many acres of wooded land will remain? Wooded land, so that's not developed. So what we're looking to find is this part right here. And you know your fractions, how many fractions of that part are left after we develop? 1/5, that's correct. So right now we're still in the draw it out section. Okay, this part will take you more time than all the rest because this is your planning stage. And if you don't plan correctly, you can't get the correct answer. So please take the time to do this step. All right, so we need to find out how many acres are in that 1/5. So we need to figure out 1/5 of the total, 68 3/4. So at this point, everything you need should be on that drawing. Okay, you know how to multiply fractions. We need to convert this mixed number into an improper fraction. So you take 68 times 4 plus 3. Get your calculators out and figure that out. And that's what you have, 275 over 4. We can simplify this a little bit. Look at your numerators and denominators and figure out if they have any factors in common. I can divide this by 5 and this by 5. This becomes 1. This becomes, when you multiply that out, you get 55 over 4. And you know how to do that. Convert that into a mixed number, and you get 13 3/4. And we need to label it 14 3/4 what? Acres. Box your answer. And let's go back and reread that question, make sure we answered it. A wooded piece of land is 68 3/4 acres. If 4/5 of this land is cleared for development, how many acres of wooded land will remain? Well, we had 1/5 left after they developed the other 4/5 of the whole amount, 68 3/4. Did our math, and we got 13 3/4 acres. And that's it. You can do this. See you next time.